all, my name is Khanam. Welcome to brand new tutorial. In this course, we are going to master completely about CSS Flexbox. If you have already heard about Flexbox, then also you can watch this video because in this video, we are going to see the techniques and tricks to use Flexbox. And also at the end, I will be showing you one quiz game so that we can solve that using Flexbox. So we will learn all the properties related to Flexbox and practically we will apply all the properties. So before understanding what is Flexbox, let's understand why should we use Flexbox. Let me open Amazon website. In this website, we have lots and lots of content. So basically, whenever you are creating website, you will be having content. And that content you have to structure properly using HTML. Once the content is structured, you have to give the shape to the content. So basically, what I mean by this is we have to give layers. So Flexbox is used to give layout inside our website. And there are two types of layers. First is page layout and second is component layout. Now in this website, let me show you. Here I am having some navbar. Maybe this is navbar and this is completely one header. And inside this we are having some components. You can see we are having some components. So this is called as page layout. Inside one whole page, how the content is structured, that is called as page layout. And second one is component layout. Now if you see here, this is one complete component and this is one complete component. Inside this, I am having heading, I am having images and here also I am having images. Inside this, I am having heading, I am having image and here I am having link. So inside component itself, content will be structured. So basically, we are having two layers, page layout and component layout. Page layout is complete page structure and component layout is inside individual components. We have content and that will be structured. So for giving this kind of layout, we will be using Flexbox. I hope you understood why should we use Flexbox. Now let's understand the definition of Flexbox. So basically, you all heard of Flexbox, but it stands for flexible box. As it is very large, so short, we will be calling it as Flexbox. And it is used for designing one-dimensional layout. In Amazon website, as I showed you, this is the website and inside this, as you can see, this complete page is a two-dimensional layout. But inside this one I can tell as one dimension. And to structure this content in this format, we will be using Flexbox. So it is a one-dimensional layout method for arranging items in rows or columns. Either we can arrange in this way in rows or we can arrange in column like this. Either horizontal or vertical, the content can be structured. And also whatever content we are creating, suppose this is my one container and inside this is my second container. What happens if I am having additional space inside my container? Using Flexbox and giving some properties, we can fill all that additional spaces and we can make our content look beautiful. And also, if you are creating responsive website, then according to content, items will be shrink to fit inside that container itself. So practically, we will see more about Flexbox. So basically, it is used for one-dimensional layout and items can be arranged in horizontal or vertical way. Now, why Flexbox was introduced? I have shown you why should we use Flexbox But why it was introduced? Before Flexbox was introduced, we were having float property. Now also many old browsers use floats and positioning. Long time ago, using these floats and positioning, developer used to give content in such a way that it should fit inside that website. They used to be frustrated because they have to give lots of margin. They have to think in more logical way. They have to give proper units so that the content will be fit properly inside the website. Suppose you are having one big container. Inside that I am having some child elements. For that child element, if I want to bring inside center using float, it is almost impossible. We have to give lot of margin, we have to give lot of padding, and so many things we have to think and we have to give layout. But now using Flexbox, it is just one or two lines of code and we can bring the container in the middle. So Flexbox has solved almost all problems of layers. And also if we are having multiple child elements, and for each element if we want to give proper spacing, that was also little bit difficult using floats, but using Flexbox it is very easy. Same goes to height as well. According to content we have to fit the height manually, but using Flexbox it is automatic. Practically we will understand whatever I told you. So that is the reason Flexbox was introduced, to solve the layered problem. Now practically let us start using Flexbox. I have created simple HTML file. Inside this I am having title. I have linked two CSS files. In one file I have given all the stylings, whatever is visible, and in second one we are going to write our styles. And here I am having one div with the class name container. You can give any name. Inside this I am having four divs. For each I have given one common class and I have given separate classes. And for this I have given some stylings. I have set the default stylings. For container I have given the height so that I will be getting this extra space here. If I don't give this height, then whatever content I am having, only that height my container will be having. So I'm just going to uncomment. And for this box, I have given width, height, I have increased the font size, and I have just given the basic stylings. And you do not have to worry about this box shadow. Only for this styling purpose, I have given this. I'm just going to close this. Now here, I have given div elements, and by default, div elements are block level elements, which means that it will be covering complete 100% of the parent, and also it will be adding one line break before and after the content. So each and every box is displayed one after the other. Now I will open my style.css. Now to make it a flex container, this is the parent. What we have to do for this parent, we just have to add one property, that is display to be flex. Now just see what happens. I will write here container, and inside this I am just going to add display to be flex. As soon as I save this, all its style element will be coming in horizontal row. Basically what happens here, whenever elements are arranged in vertical way, as soon as we give display flex, all the elements will be arranged in horizontal way. Now instead of using this flex, I can write here box. Let me comment this one, save this. Now inside this I can use display to be inline. I will save this. Now you can see here, as soon as I gave display inline, whatever width inside this main.css, whatever width and height I gave to this elements, that is vanished. Because for inline elements, we cannot give width and height. So what I will do, instead of inline, I can just use inline block. I will save this. Now I will be getting the same result what I got using this display flex. So most of the time, if you do not want to use Flexbox and if you want to arrange only one line of code in horizontal way, then you can simply use display to be block. But suppose all this content, if you want completely in the middle, this side, completely in the middle, then using this display inline block, it is not possible. And this inline block you have to apply to individual elements. So I have selected this class. I will remove this. Better I'm just going to comment it out. I will uncomment my display flex. And by default, as soon as we give display flex, all the elements will be arranged in horizontal way, that is in row wise. Okay, just imagine this red color is my container. Inside that I am having children. And this container in which we are having children, it is called as flex container. As soon as we give display flex to the parent container, then all its children will become flex items. So as soon as we give display flex, this container will be becoming flex container and these items will be becoming flex items. Now let's understand the flex model. Now this is the flex model. Don't be scared seeing this model. This is very easy to understand. Now as soon as I give display flex to my container, all the children elements will be arranged in horizontal way. And this is called as flex item children and the parent itself is called as flex container. And whenever we are using flex, in that we will have two axes, x axis and y axis. And here by default elements will be arranged in horizontal way, that is row. So when elements are arranged in horizontal way, our x axis will be the main axis and starting is called as main start and ending is called as main end. And the opposite of that vertical axis, it is called as cross axis. This will be the cross start and this will be the cross end. Let me just explain you again. As soon as we give display flex to the parent container, by default, all its children will be arranged in horizontal row. So when the direction is horizontal, then it is called as main axis. Starting will be calling as main start and ending will be calling as main end. And opposite vertical will be called as cross axis. Starting will be called as cross start and ending will be called as cross end. These words which I am highlighting J, M, H and ACV, that I will explain you in a minute once we see flex properties. So using these words, you will be able to remember all this concept. Using flex properties, it is very easy to change the direction of flex items. By default, flex direction will be row. But if I want in this way, the container should be displayed. But if I want in this way, the item has to be displayed, then I can give the flex direction to be column. As soon as I give column, in whatever position, in whatever direction my items are there, that axis, now it is in vertical. So now vertical axis will be called as main axis. This will be the main start and this will be the main end. Then opposite will be the cross axis, cross start and cross end. And these words I will be telling you after doing practical example. So whenever we have horizontal, that way is called as main axis. Whenever we are having flex item as vertical, that way is called as main axis. And opposite will be the cross axis. And this entire thing will be called as flex container. Inside this, we have flex items. Now practically, let us see all these examples. For container, I have given this display property and I have set flex. Now let me show you flex direction. By default, it will be row. If I save this, nothing will happen. I will be getting the same result. Let me comment this out. Below this, I am going to write flex direction. Now if I want to change the position, I can just write here column. Save this. Now all will be structured one by one. By default also, I was having the same stylings, but to give flex properties, we can give display to be flex. Now let me just set it to default. It will be row. Now what I want, this entire elements, I want it to move at the end. Now using Flexbox, it is very easy. Now I can just write here justify content, and here we are having multiple properties, but mostly used is center. As of now, I just want to move it to end, so I will select here end. So now what this justify property will be doing, whatever content I am having, that will be moving into horizontal way. And now I just want here at this end. So I can just write here align items to be end. Save this. Now my align item is vertical and justify content is horizontal. Now how we get this vertical and horizontal position? Now I will be showing you in that image. Only to understand myself, previously when I learned Flexbox, I just gave some sentence so that I can remember it whenever it is needed. So JMH, I have given Jackie move here, and ACV, AC is very cold. This is very stupid sentence, but for remembering the concept, it is very useful. You can give your own sentence as well, only to remember the concept. So now why I gave this? J stands for justify content property, M stands for main axis, and H stands for horizontal. So whenever our flex direction is horizontal, that is row, our justify content will be horizontal and X axis will be calling as main axis. Similarly, the opposite one, align items will be vertical and that X axis will be calling as cross axis. So whenever we give justify content flex direction row, it will be moving in horizontal way, and when we give align items to direction row, that will be moving in vertical way. And the opposite for this one, whenever our flex items are vertical, in whichever direction our items are, it is called as main axis. But now our align items will be horizontal and this X axis is called as cross axis. Now this vertical will be becoming as main axis, and using justify content, we can give vertical spacing. And for this, so for this sentence I have just written Jackie move here, justify content, main axis, horizontal whenever our flex direction is row. And AC is very cold, align items, cross axis, and very is vertical. Align items will be giving space in vertical way. And here Jackie is telling, no mama, AC is hot, and in anger, mom is telling Jackie move. So what I mean by this is AC is now align items will be cross axis and it will be horizontal. The opposite is this one, Jackie move. So J justify content, move is main axis, and this V stands for vertical. If you're taking time to understand, that's completely fine, but it is very easy and very simple once you start writing the code. So now as our flex direction, by default it is row. So this will be Jackie move here, which means justify content will be main axis and it will be moving in horizontal direction. And this one AC is very cold, which means Align items will be cross axis and that will be moving in vertical direction. Now I will just change this position. Let me remove this. I will give flex direction to be column. Now this time Jackie is telling AC is hot. So here align items will be cross axis and it will be in horizontal direction. So I will give align items to be end. Save this. Now you can see it has moved horizontal. Now mom is angry and mom is telling Jackie move. So justified content will be main axis and it will be moving in vertical direction. So I will give here end. Save this. Now you can see it will be vertical. So understand the analogy. If you're not getting, create your own example and just understand these properties. And 90% of the time, let me comment this, we will be using align items to be centered and justify content to be centered. As soon as I save this, you can see our complete content will be coming in middle. So using floats, this was very difficult to achieve. We have to give manually, we have to give the margin, we have to give the padding to achieve this kind of layouts. But using Flex, it is very easy to achieve this. So I hope till now you are clear with the concept. You understood why we have to use Flex. You understood align item, justify content, and what is main axis, what is cross axis, and what will happen to properties, align item, and justify content based on Flex direction. Now we will see some more properties of Flex using which you can create beautiful one-dimensional layers. Whenever we use Flex properties, then our developer tool will be very helpful. I will inspect this. Now inside this elements tab, you can see I will be having Flex. As soon as I click on this, it is going to give me this kind of effect. This is nothing but it is indicating this is my Flexbox inside which I am having this content, and here I am having the spaces because I have given justify content to be centered. Now here if I remove align items to be centered, you can see still I am having spaces because of justify content. If I remove this, then here this is the empty space. So now inside this, if I just remove here and let me just give space between. Now in between I will be having the spaces. And also here if you see display flex, and after this I am having this box. Now when I click on this box, all the items will be displayed and all the properties will be displayed here. By default, our flex direction will be row. Now here you can see this is the default option row. Now if I select column here, you can see all the containers will be coming in this way. And also we are having two more properties, row reverse and column reverse. Now this is column. Here if you see, I am having the numbers as 1, 2, 3 and 4. If I select row, I will be having 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now if I give row reverse, just see what happens. Now I will have from here 1, 2, 3, 4. So from reverse it is going to start. I will select row. Now if I select column reverse, from here I will be having 1, 2, 3 and 4. So whatever elements I am having, it is just going to reverse that direction. So all these properties we can apply here. I can just give here flex direction to be row reverse. Save this. Now it will be reversed in this way. So from here, let me remove this. And here I will just remove. So in this way, my containers will be displayed and all this is empty space. You can see this dotted lines, it is called as empty space. Now I'll be showing you some more properties. I will write here justify content. Start, if I just write here start, it will be in the starting position. By default, it will be start. We have end position, it is going to move in end. We have space around. I will save this. Now around these elements, I will be having the spaces. Now this space, if you see here, I am having more space because this element space and this element space both together, I will be having this much of space. And if you see here, this is the exact space around the elements. And also I am having space evenly. So same space will be divided around all the elements. If you see here, all the elements will be having same space. And finally, we have space between. So only between the elements, we will be having spaces. So this is all about justify content. So whenever you are creating navbar, then this becomes very handy. Now here, let me write align items. Now align items will be positioning the elements in vertical way because our elements are arranged in row direction. Now if I give here center, all will be coming in center. And also let me just write here space between only for better understanding. And here I have align items to be end. It will be going at end in vertical direction. Start, it is going to move at the start. And by default, the value will be stretch. I will save this. Now nothing will happen. I will come to main.css. I will remove the height. Now if you see here, by default, if these elements are not having any height, then whatever height my container is having, that much height these elements will be having. Let me come to main.css, and for this I will remove this height. Instead, I'm just going to give 100 view height. Save this. Now complete 100% it is going to cover. Now I will just write EIT view height. So by default, align items will be stretched. Now this is one way. Another way is here I will be selecting box 2, and for this I'm just going to give the height as 200 pixel. Save this. Now this element will be having 200 pixel, and from this container I'm just going to remove the height. And now if you notice, all the element size will be 200 pixel. I will show you. Now whenever I hover on this box, you can see here I will be having one box inside which height is given as 200. Here also width is this much and height is 200 for all the boxes. But if you notice, for box I have not given any height, only for box 2 I have given the height. Then why this height is applied to all the elements? Because whichever element is larger, that is whichever element is having the higher height, that height will be given to all the elements. Now here if I give here 300, save this, all the elements will be given the same height. Why? Because by default, align item is set to stretch. Now if I give here start, see what happens. It will be moving to start, and now it will be having the height of the content. So I'm having this content, only that height will be displayed. Because from here, I have removed this height. Now if I give the height, these elements will be having height. But if I don't give the height to individual boxes, whichever box is having the higher height, that height will be selected if we don't give align items property. Now if I give here end, elements will be moving to end. Now if you notice, I am having 1 here, 2 here, 3 here and 4 here. I do not want this way. I want all the content whatever I am having, that should be in single line. So we have one more property, that is baseline. I will save this. Now this content will be starting at the same line. They will be having the same baseline. Now for this we have one more property. We have flex wrap to be wrapped. By default it will be no wrap. I'm just going to give wrap. Save this. Nothing is changed here. whenever you are creating responsive website, inspect. Now just notice here, as soon as I reduce the size, if I am not having space in my container, the elements will be coming down because it is going to wrap inside that. Again, I will do. Now I am not having any space inside my container. This element will come down. Again, I will wrap. I am not having any space. Elements will be arranged in this fashion. And so this kind of layout is very important whenever we are creating responsive website. Now in similar way, instead of wrap, we have wrap reverse. Save this. Now elements will be arranged from 4, 3, 2, 1. I will increase the size. Now our first element will be coming down. You can see first element, then this one, then this one. So this will be arranged in reverse way. So this property is also very important whenever we are creating responsive websites. I will just on this flex. Now we have one shorthand property for direction and for this wrap. I will just write here flex flow. This is the shorthand property. Inside this, first we can give the direction. Direction I want column and wrap I want wrap. Save this. I will just comment this one. Now direction is column and also it is going to wrap. So this is the shorthand property. If you want to give these values, then you can use the shorthand property flex flow. So till now we have seen display property to be flex, justify content property and its values, align item values, and mostly for both we will be using center. And we have seen when the direction is row, what will be the position of main axis and cross axis, and on what basis justify content and align items will be moving. Same way for column we have seen. We have seen flex wrap property and flex flow property. Now what I want, only this box I just want at the end. I will select box 1. For this individual boxes, to select individual boxes, we have one property, align self. Here also we are having the same values. I will just write here end. Let me remove from here and here I will write end. Save this. Now only that item will be coming at the end. So inside this we can give these properties and we can get the result. Just practice these layers. Now I will be showing you the most powerful property, that is flex property. And this property is very useful, and whenever you are creating larger website, understanding this property is very important. And when I learned about this property, it took me some time to understand. So it is completely fine if you are not understanding complete 100%. But if you get started with that property, then understanding layers, designing layers will be very easy and simple to you. So I hope you understood all these things. By default, let me just write here default values. Default values. Flex direction will be row. Align items. Align items will be stretch. Justify content. Justify content will be flex start. You can either give flex start or you can give just start. Flex wrap will be no wrap. And also we have align content property that I will be showing you later. Align content, and for this the default will be stretch. This is very tricky for beginners, but this property will only be applied when we are having multiple lines. I will just comment all these values. Let me change the spelling. So for beginners, this property might be little confusing, but mostly we will be using align items and justify content. And whenever you are having multiple layers, then this align content we will be using. Okay, using flex wrap, when we give flex wrap, then we can use this align content. Before starting with flex property, I will be showing you one more important property, that is gap property. Now here, let me remove the space between. Now this is my flex items, and here inside this flex container, I am having this empty space. Now for all the boxes in between, I want some space. Definitely we can use justify content, but if I just want to give margin box, I will just write here margin. Let me give here 20 pixel. Save this. Now see what happens here. Let me open my inspect. Now whenever I hover on this, I am having margin for this element, for this element, for this element, as well as for this element. But usually whenever we give margin for this last element, we do not want any space. So what we will do, instead of using this margin property, let me comment, we will be using gap property, gap, and we will be using inside parent container. For this, let me give 20 pixel. Now see the magic. I will save this. I am having the spaces, whatever space I was having for this remaining container, that space will be divided here. And now if I inspect, you can see the magic here. When I click on this box, I am not having any margin. Only thing is, I have got this space of 20 pixel. Again, when I hover, you can see I do not have any margin at all. For this last element also, I am not having any margin. If I show you, you can see margin is nothing, margin is 0. So this gap property is very important to give little spaces or to give space between elements. So before, this gap property was not there, but now we have this gap property. By default, gap will be 0 and we can give any values. And let me just write here default values, gap will be 0. Now let us start with the most important property, that is flex property. Now before understanding flex property, we should understand flex shrink, flex grow and flex basis. And flex property is the shorthand of all those three. Let me write here flex basis, we have flex shrink, and we have flex grow. So whenever we are writing flex property, all these three property we have to display in order. So first we will have grow, then we will have shrink, then finally we will be having basis. How we have GST, in place of T we just have to write B. So this will be grow, shrink and basis. So flex property will be combination of all these three. We have grow, we have shrink and we have basis. So flex property is this one. So before moving to flex, first let us understand what is grow property, what is shrink and what is basis, and what are the default values given for all these three properties. And flex grow will be 0 by default, flex shrink will be 1 and flex basis will be auto. Now I will tell you what is this. Flex grow 0, which means whatever empty space is left, it is left inside the parent container. We are not telling any of its child to occupy that empty space. By default, the value will be 0 and elements will not be containing this empty space. It will be left as it is inside parent container. Now flex shrink. By default, it is set to 1. I will just inspect this. I will show you. Before that, let me just comment this one. Now inside these elements, you can see this is my flex container. Now shrink is 1, which means it will allow element to shrink. Let me just decrease the size. You can see Element is shrinking. Element is reducing its width. You can see elements is reducing its width. So now what I am going to do, I will be selecting all the boxes and here I am going to give flex shrink and I will give 0. What I am telling? I am telling the element should not shrink. Now I will reduce the size. Now you can see elements will not shrink and they will be going outside of the container. You can see elements will not shrink. So what happens? They will go outside of the parent container. So by default it is 1. As soon as we set 1, save this. Now elements will shrink and they will be inside the container. So this is what shrink will tell whether it should shrink or not. By default, whenever we are using flex, it will tell element to shrink and adjust the content inside that element itself. If we set to 0, then elements will not shrink. Then this is the grow. Let me just write here flex grow. By default, the value is 0. As soon as I write 1, save this. Now you can see what happened. Whatever empty space I was having inside the parent container, all that is occupied, and for this entire width is increased. So equally width is given to all the elements. Now here inside my main.css, I have given the width as 8 rem, which will be 8 into 16. 16 pixel will be the default font size. So 8 into 16 will be 128 pixel. Now if I inspect this, and now when I hover on this, you can see the width is increased. Now this lines, here I will be having some lines and here I will be having some space. So that is because I have set grow is equal to 1. And now the box width is 172 pixel. And now if you see here, the total box width is 172 pixel, which is highlighted here. And here also it is going to calculate all these values. So as soon as we set grow, then whatever space we are having inside the parent, that will be equally divided. Now here let me just give here justify content to be space between. Now if I give space between, as I am not having any space inside the parent container, now it will not be giving any space. Now if I just give here gap to be 10 pixel, save this. Now I will be having some space. Let me increase the size 50 pixel. Save this. Now you can see I will be having the space between these elements, but now the width is reduced. So basically what we are doing, whenever we are using this grow property, if we are having some space inside the parent container, that space will be given as a width for every element. But as soon as we give gap, so these spaces will be divided here and the width will be reduced. So you should be very careful. Now if I just hover, you can see the width of the box is 134 pixel. Okay, I hope you understood. Let me just comment this out and also I will be commenting out. By default, the value will be 0, which will be giving this empty space inside the parent container. And finally, we have flex bases. As I mentioned, for all these elements, I have given the width and I have given 8 rem. Now, instead of using width, if I have already given the width, then I can use flex basis and I can give the width here. Now, I do not want to give flex basis to all the containers. I just want to give to box 2. Now, inside this box 2, I am just going to give flex basis to be 200 pixel. Save this. Now, that width what I am having inside main.css, that will be overridden and this width will be given to its container. Now I will be using shorthand property. I will write here flex. First is G. I want to give it to 0. I do not want it to grow this element. If I give here 1, it is going to cover all the space whatever I am having here. Second is S, shrink. I want to shrink this or not. I do not want to shrink. So I will just write here 0. And width will be 200 pixel. Now save this. Now if you notice, width I have given as 200 pixel, but here the width is increased. Why? Because I have set this grow property to 1. What I mentioned earlier, whatever space I am having inside the parent container, that will be given as a width to its element whenever we set grow as 1. Now if I inspect and if I just hover on this element, you can see here I will be having one arrow that will be the extra width, and here I will be having the lines that will be the width which I have given. So basically now the width of this container is 304. So do not get confused with this flex property. Flex property is confusing as well as very important for beginners. Now here for this flex box, let me just comment this one, save this. Now instead of box 2, let me write here box 4, save this. I will just remove this height. Now you can see this is one kind of layout. Whenever we are designing website, we have one image, again one image, and we have this cover photo. So this is one simple layout which we can achieve using flex property. Now here, let me just comment it out as of now. Inside this box, I will be giving, let me just come down, I will write flex basis to be 400 pixel. Save this. Now you can see all the elements will be having same space. Now if I just inspect this one, and now if I see the size, now the size is 172 pixel, but I have given 400 pixel. This is because of flex itself. Whatever size our container is having, in that all these 4 elements will be adjusted. By default, our shrink is 1 and grow is 0. Now let me just inspect this. Now you can see if I reduce, they will be shrinking. And here if I just give here 0, they are not going to shrink. You can see, and also as soon as I give shrink 0, you can see the width, all the elements will be having the size as 400, and all these elements will be going outside the container. So as shrink is set to 1, what happens? They will be fit inside the container itself, inside the parent element. If you don't give the shrink, all the elements will be having this width of 400 pixel. For proof, let me just open. Now you can see here, my width is as of now 400 pixel. This also it will be calculated. And when I hover on this, here I will be having 400 pixel. So that is the reason whenever we are using display flex, these are the behind things which most of us are not aware. And now if I just set here, so instead of writing like this, I can just write here flex property. I will just come down, flex. Now first grow, I do not want it to grow, so I will give 0. Shrink, I want it to shrink, so I'm just going to give here 1. And finally, I will just write here 400 for flex basis. I will save this. Now I will be having this result. Okay, now one more important thing. Now let me just comment this out. Now I will just write here flex grow to be tree. I will save this. Now if you notice here, all the elements will be having the same width. Come to main.css. I will remove this. Save. And also I am going to remove the width. As soon as I save, then also I will be having the width. Now if I don't give this flex grow, you can see this is the output. But as soon as I give the flex grow, whatever empty space I am having here, let me show you. Whatever empty space I am having, that will be given as a width to all the elements. Now I will just save this. You can see it is given to all the elements, and all the element size will be increased. And by default, shrink is 1. So you can see they will be shrink. Flex shrink will tell whether the item should be shrinked or not. And finally, we have flex basis. It will be giving width to the child elements. And if we have already given the width, then also it will be overridden based on the content. If we are having smaller content, then accordingly it will be adjusting. If we are having larger content, then accordingly it will adjust. So this is all about flex property. Flex property is the combination of G, S, B, grow, shrink and basis. Now finally we have the last property inside flex, that is order property. By the name itself we can tell we have to arrange the elements in order. So now we have 1, 2, 3 and 4. By default order property, let me write all the default values here. Order will be 0 for all the elements. It will not be like 1, 2, 3, 4. Order will be 0 for all the elements. And this is also default values. I will just paste. Okay, you do not have to by heart default values, or you do not have to remember all the values. By practice, you will get all these values in your mind. So by default, order will be 0 for all these things. If I give less number for order, if I give less number, that element will be coming first. If I give more than 0, that element will be going last. Let me explain you. If I write here box, let me write box 2, order is 0. If I write lesser than 0, this box 2 will be coming first. I will save this. Now you can see 2, 1, 3, 4. Now here I will give box 3. Order by default order is 0. If I give value more than 0, that is 1. Now box 3 will be going at the end. You can see box 3 has gone at the end. Now if I want 1 to be at the end, then I can select box 1. Now my higher value is 1. Now the next higher value is 2. So I have to write order 2. I will save this. Now you can see 1 has gone at the end. So order property is also very important when you want to adjust your layout and when you want to display elements in different order. So this is all about CSS Flex. Now we will summarize whatever we have done till now, and also I will be showing you one game. Using that you can apply all these flex properties and you can achieve your goals and you can clear all the levels. So let us revise whatever we have learned till now. Flexbox, it stands for flexible box and it is used to design one-dimensional layout in our website. So as I mentioned, we are having two kinds of layers. We have page layout and component layout. Page layout is complete one page, whatever designs we have, that is the layout. And inside component, we have some content which is structured in some way, that is the component layout. So why we are using this Flexbox? So whatever properties I showed you earlier, using Flexbox, it is easier to achieve. But using floats as well as using positions, position is still used and it is very important. But using floats, it was very difficult to achieve layers. Now, this is the example. Whenever we use display flex, our main parent container will become flex container and all its children will be arranged in row. And it is called as flex item. So, whenever our flex direction is row, then our x-axis will be the main axis and y-axis will be the cross axis. And when flex direction is row, our justified content property will be arranged in horizontal and align items will be in vertical. Okay, this is the sentence I gave. Jackie, move here. AC is very cold. When our flex item direction is column, then our align items will be horizontal and justify content will be vertical. Accordingly, this axis names will be changed. So in whichever direction our items are there, that direction axis will be the main axis and opposite will be the cross axis. Now these are the properties we have seen. We have seen flex wrap. Flex flow is the shorthand for direction and wrap. And also we have seen all these properties, and these are the default values for all these properties. So just practice as much as you can so that flex will become very handy for you and you can use in all your projects. If you want to give one dimensional layer, then definitely flex is very important. For two dimensional layer, we have another CSS important property, that is grid, that we are going to see later. But flex is also very important, and if you are creating any website, almost every developer will be using this flex property. Now let us start with the game. You just have to search for frog flexbox. Click on this first link, and inside this code box we have to write the flex property so that this frog will be going inside this box. So just practice from your end. Now for this example, if I just write here justify content, I will write end. This, as soon as I click on next, I will be moving to level 2, and accordingly we have to give these flex properties and bring these frogs inside these circles. Just practice from your end. There are 24 levels and we have to use simple flex properties to win this game. Practice from your end so that whatever flex properties we learned now, it will be easy for you to understand. So that's all for this section. I hope you are clear with flex property. If you still did not understand complete 100%, that is completely fine, because flex is a very important and large topic and it should take time to understand. Just practice, make simple layers, use flex properties and display different content, different layers, different structure. Then you will understand all the properties and where you should use flex string and where you should use basis. Everything you will understand. So that's all for this tutorial. If you're having any doubts, you can comment your doubts in comment section, as well as you can DM me in Instagram. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial.